Welcome back to another episode of the Ricky Henderson podcast, the greatest of all podcasts, GOAP. And we are lucky to have political director of the Nevada State Education Association, Chris Daly, who is also affiliated with Schools Over Stadiums. And we got my co-host Hal Gordon on the chat. How you doing, Hal?
Oh, I'm doing great. Hot dog.
And Chris, so first of all, thank you so much for your time. I know this is a complicated topic with a bunch of different wheels spinning. Um, but first of all, I think we got to talk about yesterday or Friday. Stadium Authority approved the community benefits agreement, which is worth up to $2 million a year, I believe. And I saw the poster that you guys had up. It was $380 million in public funding, $2 million towards community benefits. That was the meat of the message that I saw. But what do you just make of that ruling and Steve Hill's involvement and all these different all these? I mean, there's so much to unpack here, but yeah, what do you make of yesterday's ruling and kind of where that leaves things?
Yeah, first, Alex and Hal, thanks for having me on the Ricky Pod. Excited to be here with you, talking. At least our side, our Nevada side of A's baseball. Yeah, we were at the Las Vegas Stadium Authority yesterday. It's been interesting because, as we know, SB1, the bill that authorized the $380 million of public money in the stadium deal for John Fisher on the Tropicana Hotel site on the Strip in Las Vegas, that passed back in June. Alex and I were chatting before we hit record a little bit. And think back to the first reverse boycott. That's how long it's been since basically Nevada approved this deal. And Fisher, Caval, and friends have been out there, attempting to, do their side. The biggest lift being the financing in order to get this thing done. If you remember SB1 in it. They basically gave the A's 12 months to get all their ducks in order. That included the approval from the MLB, which they got that in a rubber stamp from baseball. They needed to sign on their architects and their development team. It seems like they've done that. They now have they've now issued drawings. They have their little model that glows. That
Purple armadillo.
The humping armadillos, yes.
Humping armadillos.
That's an image that we can't get out of our head. That showed up on A's Twitter.
Yeah.
But what they need to actually negotiate and get approved through the Stadium Authority is 4 significant contracts. And one of the 4 is this community benefits agreement that the Stadium Authority, negotiated and approved in a unanimous vote the day before yesterday, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Thursday. So on Thursday, they approved it. Schools Over Stadiums was there. We spoke in opposition. And we had a lot of different points that we made, including a lot of details in the community benefits agreement that we thought were pretty weak sauce. But I think our overall point is, all of this, big to do at the Stadium Authority this month, and they canceled last month's meeting, and they have already announced they're canceling next month's meeting. So over the course of nearly 12 months, the time frame that they were given to get all their ducks in order, which includes the financing. They've burnt through most of that 12 months, and what they've got to show for it is this community benefits deal, as you said, worth $2 million a year in cash and probably mostly in-kind contributions. These are the ticket giveaways that they do and whatnot. And what we wanted to say yesterday mainly, and then with that graphic that we had is, we're here as, representing educators in Nevada, fighting for funding for Nevada schools. which desperately need something like $380 million. And this whole meeting had nothing to do with the $380 million. It only had to do with $2 million that Fisher is going to, donate in tickets that he wasn't able to sell anyway. His $100,000 here and there to Little League, that sort of thing. So that's what yesterday was about. It didn't change the fundamentals of the deal. They still need to do those three big agreements. That's the development agreement being the big one, the related lease agreement, and the related non-relocation agreement. And those items are the biggies. And Steve Hill, after the meeting in an interview, Steve Hill is the chair of the Stadium Authority and the head of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Bureau.
We all know Steve Hill. Jeremy
Aguero. For the record, Steve Hill. For the record, Steve Hill.
It's Jeremy Aguero. For the record, Steve Hill. He's he's the captain, I guess, or the manager. So Steve Hill basically said in an interview that maybe there will be a development agreement at the May meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to have a development agreement, the A's and John Fisher and Dave Cavall have to basically get all their ducks in order, including securing all the financing. So until there's financing, there is no development agreement, which means there are no bonds, there are no tax credits, there's no stadium, and there's no project without the financing.
So, that's the big one. I mean, the community benefits agreement, and I don't think anyone was like that shocked that this passed. Like these are sort of the easy pins that they almost set up themselves to knock down. But we are very cognizant, I think, in Oakland that they are having a hard time raising money and getting all this financing together. And partly what we've been seeing a lot in Oakland is them seeming to be very open to a lot of different ways to try and somehow get this $200 million in TV money by staying in Oakland from 2025 to 2027 because they desperately need money. And that $200 million, I think they, in a lot of ways, they would love to go somewhere else, but they just desperately need that money. And they're afraid, I think, that the state and Alameda County are going to tell them to get lost. What have you been hearing in Nevada? Your ear to the ground. I don't know if people talk to you that much, knowing that you're the opposition of this whole thing. But what have you been hearing about his ability to finance this thing?
So, I mean, what we know, we don't have inside sources on that. I mean, look, let's be honest. I would love to kill the stadium deal in Las Vegas and keep those public monies in public services, including public schools, which is what my day job is about, fighting for, more resources, for schools and for kids and educators in Nevada. I'd love to kill that thing with, a referendum that goes to the ballot and the voters reject it, or our litigation that, goes, to a judge who rules that it's unconstitutional. I would love to score the win, right? Like you always want to win the game, right? With a walk-off. That would be fantastic. But if they balk a run in, and that's sort of how we win this. A win's a win, right? Win and move on. And so part of our thinking is that just gumming up the works, creating enough uncertainty to make it hard for John Fisher to find financing and close deals. And I'll tell you, it got a lot of play probably here and on the internet when Fisher came to the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce event and had that little kind of softball session. And then at the end of it, the host had to get up, and there was like no reaction, no applause, and she wanted to know if Las Vegas was alive out there. And I think most of the credit goes to A's fans for organizing, taking this movement nationwide, and exposing John Fisher for being a bad person, possibly an even worse, businessman. And then, we get to go and create political uncertainty, legal and political uncertainty around whether or not this $380 million is actually going to happen. And then you have, I think a lot of what Alex, we were talking about earlier around baseball maybe not working really well in Las Vegas. The NFL and the Raiders work, not because there's, a huge groundswell of support for the Raiders in Las Vegas. It's because, NFL teams travel. And Legion Stadium is, at least half full of opposing fans every game that they play there. That's not going to be the reality on, a Tuesday afternoon set or something like that in Las Vegas with all of those games and all of those weekday games. That's not the business model. I don't think works as well. So you have these confluence of factors. I think that makes it very difficult for Fisher. He out of the gate, the big, lending institutions, the B of A's and the Wellses and, Chases, they weren't even being discussed as, possible financing. Right. So
right to Goldman Sachs,
right to
who's
Goldman
gonna
Sachs,
offer
who's going to do
a lot higher interest. Yeah.
Who are more willing to take on the higher risk projects and charge more. But we don't even hear much about Goldman Sachs anymore. And so Fisher's out at the Las Vegas Chamber event, and he even says in the softball interview that he'd love to get support from Las Vegas.
And he walked it back. He goes back and forth. He doesn't even know what he wants. I don't think.
So I mean, I think he did want to get support from Las Vegas, but I don't think it was forthcoming.
Yeah.
So look, at a certain point, John Fisher, or let's be honest, John Fisher's siblings are going to have to decide if they want to underwrite this deal or not. I actually believe that if the broader Fisher family wanted to do it and was driven to do it, that they could probably put it together to do it. I don't know the dynamics of the Fisher family. I knew the old man a little bit and kind of had my battles with him. But who knows what the dynamics are in the Fisher's family until a week ago or so. They had been saying that they were going to get some sort of, equity for that remaining tranche of money that they needed. I think, was it Caval a week ago that said, the family was going to step in if need be? We'll see. Right. And if not, maybe this thing dies because they couldn't put together the financing. No financing, no development agreement. And then guess what? If you don't have a development agreement and the related other agreements, and then, the order to Clark County to issue the bonds, you're not going to see a cent of that $2 million from the community benefits agreement, because the community benefits agreement only gets triggered as effective when Clark County sells bonds.
Some listeners might be surprised to hear that you have known or have had battles with John Fisher's dad. Chris, you're actually a former San Francisco county and city and county supervisor. So you've been around in Bay Area politics
I was
a
going
long
to
time,
say,
even though you're in Nevada now.
I was going to see if you knew the Fishers, or ran into
that's correct. So I represented District 6 on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors for 10 years. District 6, kind of a interesting district, includes, Giants Ballpark, includes the Gap World Headquarters up in that area. Also includes like the Tenderloin and 6th Street and 16th Street in the North Mission, which is how where I got my votes. and how I won. But yeah, I used to battle with John Fisher a good bit. And he probably, I'm not John Fisher. I only met him once, I think. I used to battle Don Fisher, and he probably was the biggest political spender against me in my 10 years in San Francisco. He probably dropped $1 million or something like that over my tenure to try and unseat me. Term limits got me. So now I work in Nevada.
Well, I was going to say,
Cool.
we were talking offline. So you actually live in California still, but you commute out to Las Vegas. Could you explain how you got involved with the Nevada State Education Association? And then could you also explain to our listeners the difference between that organization and Schools Over Stadiums and how they're related but separate as well?
Yeah, I mean, how I ended up in Nevada is probably not the most important thing. I do politics, and I don't get along with the governor in California. So we used to sit next to each other, and I used to be a baseball catcher, so I used to chat him up during board meetings.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to vote for this piece of shit, aren't you? So,
I,
Yeah.
who else do we got to vote for? But yeah,
no, I'm
listen,
not. No, I used to say to Gavin
no,
in board
No,
meetings that,
oh,
like,
you would say that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I said all sorts of things to him apparently.
yeah.
Um, anyway, but I had a coworker. I worked at SEIU Local 10-1, which is a union in Northern California. After my term in office, and a colleague of mine who I worked with there ended up being the executive director at the Nevada State Education Association. And the Nevada State Education Association, we are like a sister organization of the California Teachers Association. So we are the state education associations affiliated with the National Education Association, which is the largest union in the country, representing, I think, about 3 million educators in the country. Nevada is a relatively small state, certainly compared to California. So we're a pluckier kind of organization in Nevada. But I would say, your other question, Schools Over Stadiums.
Uh-huh.
We just formed Schools Over Stadiums in response, to be honest with you, to calls from A's fans for people in Nevada to keep up the fight, right? Like, as the State Education Association, we've been trying to get more resources for Nevada schools forever. I mean, probably close to 125 years of our existence. We've been probably arguing across all of those years, to get more resources into schools. Nevada ranks 48th in the country in per pupil funding. We have the largest class sizes in the country. We have the worst crisis in terms of teacher vacancies in the country, thousands and thousands of teacher vacancies in the middle of the school year in Nevada, and in a relatively small state. So, when these stupid proposals show up at the legislature, and it's not just Nevada, it's everywhere, like, a film tax credit or a giveaway to Tesla to build their, gigafactory outside of Reno, or, the A's stadium. We oppose all of these things, right? And we often lose, right? We opposed Elon Musk's, big giveaway, the big giveaway to Elon Musk. But there wasn't a groundswell, like an organizing thing that was happening at the same time. At least that was before, Elon got, a hold of Twitter and all that. But
Yeah.
so when we lost on the Tesla tax breaks, we just kind of went home, right?
Yep.
We lost, it was over. But when we lost on SB1, it was different. Members of ours had met kind of A's fans on Twitter and on the phone lines calling in. I like to tell the story of a local leader that we have in Las Vegas. She's a reading specialist in elementary schools in Las Vegas. She was on the phone lines, and she had a donors choose list, which is basically like a kind of a GoFundMe for teachers. So she had a donors choose list, and apparently, like an Oakland fan found it and cleared it, bought everything on her list. And she's texting me. We're both on hold, like waiting to give public comment. And she's like, "You'll never believe like what happened. Like my donors choose list, all my library, all the books that I wanted, like they bought it all." And it's like somebody from, it wasn't Oakland, I forget where they're from. It might have been Lafayette. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
somebody from such and such town in California. Like I've never heard of them. They usually like your mom or dad or your sister, your cousin, or a friend from college or something goes on, and they got a little more money and you're a teacher, and so they'll buy some stuff for your classroom. This was like just random strangers, and that happened several times. And so our members were like, well, this is like
Yeah.
something that is a little bit more kind of like solidarity
Mhm.
than what you usually see when kind of different interests come together. So there's been this relationship that was forged in those terrible, hearings on these terrible bills in the Nevada State Legislature that kind of got a life of its own. So, and then on the referendum, because we started out talking about the referendum, the reason why, we started schools over stadiums was to pursue the referendum, right? But normally we wouldn't do that. But I had A's fans on like my Twitter, like tagging me, like linking the section of the Nevada State Constitution on how to do a referendum. And I'm like, I've read the Nevada State Constitution. It's kind of like my day job. I'm familiar with this. You're in Oakland. I'm not sure why you're telling me how to.
Well, this is what sports fans do. We
Administer.
watch the
I'm not sure you're
TV. We're
telling.
like, oh,
Why
I
are you
could do this
telling me how
better.
I referendum?
Yeah, I can do this better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Why'd
it's
you put
very
that
rarely
guy in?
done, but I'm
We're
I'm I'm
it's
vaguely familiar. I know
Yeah,
how to look up the
it's
Constitution,
it's
but
armchair coaching for politics. That's what it is. It's the same
yeah.
thing.
well, but we lost. Like we went home. I'm meeting with my colleagues, and I'm like, these Oakland fans are still like calling on us to like do this. I mean, should we do this? And we basically decided, why not? Like if they're energized and they want to go down this path, and we sure could use that $380 million in Nevada classrooms. Let's keep going and see whether we can win this thing.
So let's talk about how we're going to get this win, right? Because this story of politics of, people going to the legislature, taking public funds for these private purposes, and everyone sort of agreeing that it's bad, but nobody being able to do anything about it. It is this long and often it just happens all the time. But like, let's talk about how we're going to win this. So, um, right now we got John Fisher. He's, the way that I view it is that he's been unsuccessful at getting all these things that we thought he was going to get right away. So he's sort of like got one hand tied behind his back, or he's only on one leg or whatever. Maybe, we can sort of provide that wind to knock him down, or we're going to be one more needle, one more straw trying to break the camel's back. So you guys have been pursuing two different avenues, and I want listeners to really understand what you guys are doing and what the goals are there, and then we're going to talk about, I think, how later this week during the boycott you guys are going to be at the Coliseum trying to make this happen. So what are those two avenues you're doing? Where are they at? How are they going to be successful?
Yeah, so I mentioned the Oakland fans doing the research on the Nevada Constitution and the referendum process. So we launched Schools Over Stadiums to pursue a referendum of SB1. That's the bill that authorizes the $380 million for the stadium. Kind of outlines all the stuff that you see happening at the stadium authority, the stuff that hopefully we won't see happen at Clark County, et cetera, around the issuing of bonds, that sort of thing. So in order to thank you, Thank you, Oakland fans. In order to qualify a referendum in Nevada, you need to collect about 103,000 valid signatures of Nevada voters. Those signatures need to be divided evenly in the 4 Nevada congressional districts. So you basically get 3/4 of the signatures in Clark County in the south, and about 1/4 of the signatures in Washoe County and Reno in the north. And you need to get those signatures into your county elections offices by June 26th. The deadline is actually in July, but the counties need basically a week to process those signatures and get them to the Nevada Secretary of State, who then will determine whether or not you've qualified for the November ballot. If you qualify, there's an up or down vote. It's basically a revote on SB1. Meaning we want to vote no. So we would qualify it and then get a no vote. We, from the very beginning, have known that if we qualify this measure, I don't know if John Fisher has enough money to win the vote in front of Nevada voters. We think we would win, not going away. We think they would close the gap. But they wouldn't be able to close the gap enough that we would win in November. The A's have known this as well, and so the A's have employed their legal strategy of run the clock out, run our bills up. And I will say that it's one of the areas where John Fisher has actually had some success in terms of the stadium deal. So they sued. We filed our petition. This is back in the fall. They sued on very technical grounds. Their 2 arguments were, one, that our description of effect, you have to include this 200-word description of what the effect of your measure will be. And it's, my lawyers spent a long time trying to craft this 200-word thing. It's probably impossible in 200 words to describe any possible effect a measure will have. But in this case, it's a little different because, we're actually stopping something from taking effect. So the description of effect really is, well, John Fisher won't get his $380 million. He could build a stadium without it. He could go back to the legislature for a different deal. I mean, all sorts of different scenarios could happen. You need more than 200 words to describe them. So, our description of effect, it's online. You can read it. That was one of their arguments. Their other argument is, I don't know if people remember this, but there was a cat and mouse game going between Steve Hill and Schools Over Stadiums before we filed our petition. Basically, we were threatening to file a petition. We were intending to file a petition. We were talking about it publicly. And what Steve Hill said in response to that was, they can file their petition if they want, but we're going to have contracts done before the vote, which means there's federal laws that would basically and our attorneys actually
undo a contract. Yeah,
correct. So what we decided to include in the referendum was not the entirety of SB1, but only certain sections of SB1, and those were the sections that reserved the right of Nevada to amend SB1. So the petition that we filed, and we think in that cat and mouse game, we got through there. And when we filed our petition, Steve Hill no longer was saying that our petition wasn't going to work. We think our petition most certainly will work if passed. And so at that point, that was when they sued Nevada educators and Schools Over Stadiums, and our petition ended up going to district court. That process took a little while, and unfortunately, in front of one judge at the district court who was unfavorable, We lost. We turned around and immediately appealed that decision to the Nevada State Supreme Court. But just because how long these timelines are, in terms of the judicial process, which is very slow in the state of Nevada, we've basically had to wait until April 9th coming up, when we'll have our hearing on this in front of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court could have issued an opinion just based on what was presented at the district court. We think it would be that they very well might have done that and sided with, upheld the lower court's decision. Yeah. The fact that they have asked for oral arguments, which are going to happen on April 9th, we think it is a good sign in terms of our case. We're hoping that they act swiftly at the Supreme Court. We're hoping to win, but we're hoping that they act swiftly and that we can get, if we win at the Nevada State Supreme Court, we can be on the streets the next day collecting signatures.
So it sounds like that's where the referendum's at. We're going to have the hearing on April 9th, and then hopefully soon after we'll know if that's possible or not. Now, there's a second thing that maybe it's not schools over stadiums, but a different like legal fiction or whatever is suing the state of Nevada to say that SB 1 in fact violates the Nevada state constitution. So without going into every single thing of what that lawsuit's about, essentially, can you sort of describe to A's fans what sort of briefly what the process of that is, that this lawsuit, is going to happen if we can keep supporting you guys, and sort of what would be the outcome of that court?
Yeah, so our other committee called Strong Public Schools Nevada, along with a couple of prominent educators in the state of Nevada, sued the state over SB 1 on constitutional grounds. The reason why Strong Public Schools Nevada and not Schools Over Stadiums did this is twofold. One, our lawyers didn't want to muddy the waters between the two cases. Whatever. And then two, Strong Public Schools Nevada is an issue committee. So the other committee.
What would be the outcome of that lawsuit?
So we sued. We named the governor and the treasurer on behalf of the state of Nevada. The legislature basically asked to intervene. So we have now named the Nevada State Legislature as a defendant. And the legislature also asked us to name the Stadium Authority and Clark County. So those are all the entities that we are suing. Interestingly enough, last week, new lawyers for John Fisher and the A's contacted our lawyer, and they have asked to intervene in the litigation. We have told the A's, no, we're not going to stipulate to your intervention in the case. So probably in the next week or so, you're going to see the A's. I will answer how. You're going to see the A's basically filing a motion against educators again in the next week or two to get in on this case, and we're gonna oppose them, and that's going to be a little skirmish before the actual fight on the substance of the item. So the substance of the item is, we believe SB 1 violates 5 sections of the Nevada State Constitution. We believe that the sale of personal seat license violates the Constitution because that raises new revenue for the state, because the Stadium Authority technically owns the stadium, and this would be them authorizing the A's to sell these. The Constitution prohibits any new revenue from being raised without a 2/3 vote of the legislature. They did not get a 2/3 vote on SB 1. That's one of them. Several of our charges have to do with the relationship between the state and Clark County. I know that a few of you probably have read SB 1. There's all sorts of requirements that the state puts on Clark County around bonding, around financing, and there are provisions of the state constitution which don't allow the state to take on any local jurisdiction's debt. And so we believe that it violates that. Just a lot of technical things. So there's a continuing appropriation that the treasurer makes to an account. They initially funded it with $14 million to basically buy down preferred interest rates on the bonds. We believe that continuing appropriation, because it instructs the treasurer to refill the account, but it doesn't make an appropriation for him to do so. So we think that violates the appropriations rules in the Nevada Constitution. So it's on the internet, folks who are legally minded.
So
please read. We think each of our causes of action are pretty good, and we only really need to win on one.
And if you win on one, you're basically taking away a huge portion or maybe all of SB1, right? So that would do the same job as a referendum. And
depending on which one we win, I mean,
yes,
if we win on all of them, it's gone. It's dead. If we win on one or two of them, it is likely gone or dead.
And the point that we were talking about earlier is that since John Fisher is having such a hard time raising this money, getting all his ducks in a row, potentially even winning on one could be a fatal blow. Certainly winning on all would almost certainly be a fatal blow. Rob Manfred said, them getting the referendum, basically essentially getting rid of SB1 would really mean that would be the only way that MLB would have to reconsider this whole thing. So, I've always viewed, and I've sort of made it very known on this podcast, but I've always viewed this to be a huge opportunity for A's fans. So how, A's fans, am I right in sort of saying that A's fans have been almost the only sort of the by far the main funder of this, right? Without A's fans, none of this would happen. And basically it's only been A's fans. So we've been,
Well, Hal, I'll just say this, I don't want to minimize what a lot of our members have done in Nevada. We do have, significant contributions, meaningful contributions coming in from Nevada residents and teachers and other educators in the state. There are progressives in our broader coalition who support us. But you're right. An overwhelming majority, you can look at our filings of resources that we've used other than kind of any organizational in-kind resources that we've been dedicating to this fight have come from A's fans. And it's been largely rank and file A's fans contributing $50 or $100. We've had a few larger checks coming as well, which has been very helpful. But the truth is this, a referendum is expensive. I've publicly said before that probably it takes $1 million is sort of the going rate in Nevada to qualify a referendum because of how the state kind of is set up. Usually most signatures that are gathered by paid signature gatherers. We think that we can get a decent chunk as volunteer signatures, but we're going to need to pay for signatures as well. Those are going $8 to $10 per signature, and so you can do the math about what we need. And then on the litigation side, our lawyers also cost money. They're relatively efficient.
Attainable.
But, excuse me.
I kind of view the referendum as the stretch goal. The lawsuit, we've already gotten a portion of the way there with all the money that A's fans have donated, and sort of now we have plans to raise more money to get the lawsuit done, and I think that's definitely more attainable. And so, what are you asking from A's fans? You guys are going to be out in force, I think, from what we sort of talked about. You guys are going to be out in force in the parking lot on Thursday. The boycott. What are you guys asking from A's fans at the boycott?
Yeah, for Ricky Blog listeners, if you can check out our postings we have three of us from Schools Over Stadiums coming to Oakland, so we're not bussing in folks. So we're relying on volunteers in and around the East Bay, folks planning on being at the boycott to help volunteer, and we're going to basically canvass the boycott, the parking lot, the line to get in, folks coming over the footbridge from BART. We've got badges. I think I got one here that folks are going to be wearing with. We got our handy badges with our
Uh-huh.
QR code. To donate. Sorry, it's my
Yeah.
screen's blurred.
No, that's cool.
Um, and it's a podcast anyway.
Yeah.
So, we're going to be out there raising funds. We did get some good news this week. There is an A's fan who has some deeper pockets who wants to see this be successful. So he has pledged to match contributions to Schools Over Stadiums on Thursday, up to $100,000. So if we get if we reach the goal of $100,000 in contributions on Thursday from A's fans, we'd get another 100,000 on top of that from a major donor. That would fully fund litigation and all appeals. And it would also get us started in terms of getting out there collecting signatures on a referendum if we are able to clear the Supreme Court. So that's the idea. So from A's fans, sign up to volunteer. I haven't posted it yet, but I think on Tuesday, kind of dinner time, we're going to do a little Zoom volunteer training. Relatively short, just kind of some talking points and some updates on where we're at with the campaign. So folks who are out there asking for contributions can have, thoughtful conversations with A's fans. One thing that I found from Fans Fest and being there, I've never been at a table. I've gone and tabled lots of events before. I used to be a politician, right? So I've gone to a lot of these things. I have never had a line of people waiting to talk to me at a table. I wasn't selling beer, right? We had a few giveaways like stickers and stuff, but nothing special. And A's fans were there thirsty for information and what's the latest, what's going on, how's it looking in Nevada. They want to know, and they want to know because I think a lot of A's fans understand kind of need to kill the Vegas deal in order to give Oakland a chance at keeping the A's. And killing the Vegas deal also might mean an early sale from Fisher. So the original call of sell the team, I think we kill the thing in Vegas. That's on the table.
Why I'm so excited about this is that I view everything that A's fans themselves has been so amazing in just making this a national thing. Like people just kind of thought the Oakland doesn't care about baseball. The like attendance was low, blah blah blah. But like we let them know we do, and it's been John Fisher, and now everyone sort of knows that. And what I'm hoping is that this is sort of this next step where A's fans can be proactive in not only just letting people know, but getting out there and doing something real. Because, if we can get, not even everybody, but just like a reasonable portion of the people at the boycott to donate what they would have spent in the game, but they're not because they're boycotting. If they just donate that to Schools Over Stadiums, we're going to get to that $100,000. Then we're going to get that matching $100,000. We're going to have that lawsuit good to go. And if we get those two things like good to go, that's going to be a big news story. A's fans raise $100,000, $200,000 in a parking lot during the boycott. That's a big news story, in sports and even in other journalism. That starts that ball really rolling so that if we get good news in April about the referendum, we can then attack that. That's my sort of dream for this. If A's fans, we'll find out, right? We'll find out if A's fans in that parking lot share my dream. I really hope they do, and I really hope people who will work with you guys, volunteer with you guys, get out there, call their friends who are A's fans who maybe aren't at the boycott. Just call people who they know love the A's and just get it keep going. So that's what I'm hoping happens. I think this is a really great opportunity for A's fans to sort of strike one more very real blow um, at at the A's. Yeah.
Well, another thing I want to talk about too, I thought it was really interesting, Chris. I didn't realize you were saying that there's like a proposed $10 billion project in Vegas right now that would include an NBA ready stadium and it'd be fully privately financed. So that makes me think like is that maybe why Fisher is having trouble? Like maybe people are putting money there. They'd rather do business with this other group than Fisher because I mean
Well, I
if it's
also told you
possible,
that
yeah. Yeah.
the the gold standard in Vegas in terms of professional sports are the Golden Knights. They're, they've turned Las Vegas into a hockey town. Their arena completely privately financed. MGM and others put that together. Everybody knows about the Sphere thing
Mhm.
uh,
James Dolan, right?
over
MSG,
there,
right?
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Um, billions of dollars, completely privately financed. And then there's this development south of the Strip that's being discussed. That's proposed to include a NBA ready arena. I think it's close to a $10 billion proposal. They've come out and said they are not seeking any public funding
Do you know who's
for.
behind that? Do you know who the money is behind that or
I'm not gonna look it up. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. But that's interesting because I didn't hear about that because that just makes I don't know, it just makes it seem like if this group of investors get $10 billion and if John Fisher can't get 500 million, there's something wrong, right? There's something wrong in this picture like because
And
I
people are willing to give this basketball development $10 billion, knowing that there's no public money behind it. John
yeah.
Fisher's got all this public money behind it, and he still can't find anybody to to uh, to fund him.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to
It's
me.
It's
embarrassing.
Yeah.
it's called Oak View Group.
Okay.
Tim Lewicki.
Okay, okay, I'm not sure. That's interesting. I never heard of that, so I didn't know that was possible. I mean, it just makes me just I mean, you're actually spending time in Vegas. Do you feel like he's not getting that warm reception that he expected, or I mean, it doesn't seem like it for me. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, I'm in a California bubble over here, but
yeah. You know, look, Las Vegas was kind of starved for pro sports for so long. Because gambling capital and all that. That I think there's been this feeling that you know that sports teams should come to Vegas. Um, leagues should come to Vegas. They should lift the ban and whatnot. And then the Golden Knights came. You know, the Aces, the Raiders, they're a different beast, but the NFL obviously is kind of the granddaddy of, of all of the leagues at this point in time. And so I think there was this assumption that baseball was baseball and then the NBA were obvious next steps, but uh, things have changed in Nevada. I think largely due to the organizing that the Oakland fans have done, the exposure on Fisher, coupled with our organizing at Schools Over Stadiums coming behind it. Um, I initially, in terms of thinking about the electoral math to win the referendum, my assumption was we were going to lose in Vegas. But when running up the numbers in the north and in rural Nevada, kind of the same way that Joe Lombardo beat Steve Sisolak in the governor's race. Sisolak won in Vegas, but then Lombardo won by huge margins in the north and rurals and won. I kind of stopped thinking about that model when I realized we're just going to win in Vegas. That like Las Vegas, your average, Las Vegas resident is not excited about the A's. And if they have a choice about whether or not to spend some money on their schools, or to entice the A's, it's a no-brainer. Schools.
Yeah. I think it's a winning message. It's so frustrating, I think, it's just so frustrating that like we have to do all this work to support something that's probably really popular to get it through, this system where all these politicians get all their donations from these billionaires, and the billionaires get to spend all this money to fund these campaigns. And here we are, we're having to scrape together. But there are so many people out there who care about the A's. There's a lot more people who care about the A's than listen to this podcast, but we're gonna get that message out there on Thursday. I'm really excited about it. I think there's a great chance that A's fans are really gonna come together around this. And this could just really snowball into something that that the A's never planned on having to face. Yeah, I'm excited.
And I would say, like, your work has been inspirational. I've never seen a movement out of kind of this question of kind of community ownership of like this private corporation, but kind of public kind of feeling or entity. Like it's kind of very populist, also anti-corporate. Like it's not political, but it is in some
It
ways.
feels like it, yeah. I mean,
But I'll say this: you're way cooler than John Fisher. Your struggle is righteous. You know, most billionaires and certainly John Fisher, they will never do anything in their lives with their vast resources as meaningful as what you all have already done. And so I want to win. I'd like to see the A's stay in Oakland. I want to see John Fisher have to sell the team and go away. I didn't want to see him disgraced. I just would like to never think about him again. And that's what I would like to see. But the fight itself has value, and in that way, I think we've already won. But now let's like actually go and actually win,
well, I was gonna
because
say, where
that's
do
important too.
so where do Nevada students fit into this? I mean, I'm hearing this, but it's like you guys are the Nevada State, Education Association, and do you feel like the focus is ultimately on this cause, or do you feel like you guys are? This is, I mean, I know there's a lot of momentum and there's good feelings, but do you feel like this mission really fully aligns? Just being devil's advocate here, fully aligns with what you guys' mission is as an organization?
Like it's kind of weird, like being mentioned on Sports Center. Typically, we're usually mentioned in like Education Week,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
or something
NPR,
like that.
NPR or
Maybe,
something. Yeah.
we're in the local news, but we're almost
Yeah.
never in the sports section, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it is different, but I think, let me just put it this way. We go to the legislature every 2 years. Nevada only has biennial legislative sessions. Um, you know, I've been lobbying there for the last 8 years. We have a very big presence in Carson City. This past session was probably our biggest presence. We had a rally in May, and it was mostly our members from the north. We had some folks come up from Vegas, but mostly from Reno and parts in the north. We had 1,000 people at the legislature. I think it was May 15th, calling on the legislature to do more for public education. I think we had a specific ask of an extra $250 million. We had a member of ours who's in the legislature, Selena LaRue Hatch. She gave, I think, a good speech against SB1, if folks remember that. She had a bill to reduce class sizes in Nevada. We have the largest class sizes of any state in the country. I have members teaching with 45, 48, like kids in a class. Like it's like
Yeah.
That's
That's a lot.
it's rough.
it's
Yeah. I was reading an
It's
article too. There's a lot of
that
long-term substitutes who just kind of get
it,
wrapped into the full-time gig,
yeah,
right?
yeah. We have thousands of teacher vacancies, so you have long-term subs in those classes. If you're lucky, you'll get a long-term sub, and not a series of short-term subs. But we went into the legislature with this ask. We had 1,000 people there, the largest non-Trump rally in Carson City, in the last decade, and the legislature said they couldn't afford it. They'd already given extra money to schools. Well, yeah, they after they cut all the money during COVID, yeah, they had some extra money they gave back to schools. Um, the following week was when that $500 million bill was dropped, and Fisher and Caval showed up to the legislature and were welcomed with open arms. So we're there with 1,000 teachers and other educators asking for $250 million more or less to reduce class sizes, and they said, sorry, maybe next time. And Fisher shows up the next week and they open up. They got creative. They bring in Jeremy Aguero for the record. They get creative and they figure out how to get them that money. And that stung. And so fighting public subsidies for baseball stadiums the core mission of the Nevada State Education Association? No.
Yeah.
Fighting for our members and schools and our students is our core mission. But because of the way it lined up and because of the misplaced priorities of politicians in Carson City, Nevada, then we're fighting this giveaway of public money that could go to the schools. One of their arguments in the beginning is, well, this money wouldn't even go to the schools. Well, yeah, it would revert to the general fund of the state, of which about 40% by formula go to the schools, right? So 380 million wouldn't go to the schools, probably 150 million
That's pretty good. Yeah.
would go to the schools, trickle through the relatively complicated school funding formulas that I'm not going to get into any more than that on this podcast. But probably 150 million, give or take 10 or 15 million, one way or the other, would go to schools if we block this. And that is the mission of the Nevada State Education Association.
Awesome.
Some people watch this on YouTube, some people listen to the podcast, but just sitting here, watching you talk and listening to you talk about that, uh, that frustration, that bringing all those people to Carson City and being told no, I just hear the frustration and I hear the sort of injustice being done there. And I realize I think I don't know, both things are important. I think that funding schools is a lot more important than protecting this Oakland community thing. I don't but whatever. But like I think it makes sense. It makes sense why we're fighting together, man. It makes sense. I think we're both fighting for our communities is what we're doing, you know? And yeah, I we're both fighting for our communities and we're, going to do it together. And we can win together. So, man, I hope people listening, feel that pain that you feel the pain that they feel, and we can unite and get this done, man. Because it's what's right. So that's awesome. I'm very excited about Thursday.
Great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm bringing my son.
Nice, man.
Great,
Yeah,
great.
so make sure so you can go to schoolsoverstadiums.com or follow them on Twitter at edu over stadiums. And is there anything else, Chris, you want to let us know before we wrap this up or anything
I'm
else?
looking forward to seeing you Thursday.
Thursday. Awesome, man. All right, thanks so much for
Very
the
cool.
chat. All right, that was Political Director of the Nevada State Education Association, Chris Daly. And yeah, we'll see y'all Thursday in the parking lot. Honk those horns in the fifth inning. All right.